What is your name, please?
Buck Delventhal, Buckdelventhal, and my real name is Burk, but you can call me Buck.
How did you get the name Burk? Buck?
When I was in high school, a substitute teacher misread the roll and called me Buck, and that's how it started.
Okay, Buck. When did you start open water swimming?
Well, when I was a kid, my grandfather built a house up in Tomales Bay. This is in the 50s, and by Marshall. And I used to go up there in the summer, and I'd swim out there. But I was never really a great swimmer, and that was when I was in
Are you a great swimmer
junior
now?
high school. No, and I came down here, and a friend of mine named Rene Chouteau talked me into joining after we had been up in Hetch Hetchy for a week, and we were hot and dusty, and getting in the cool water sounded pretty good. So I came down, and I got in the water, and the first swim I took, I got to the first buoy, and I was exhausted, but I really liked it. So that's
Did you ever swim in Hetch Hetchy, Buck?
Not in Hetch Hetchy Lake, no.
Dam?
I mean, not in the dam behind the reservoir behind the dam, but I swam in some of the lakes above Hetch Hetchy when we were backpacking.
You know, we used to do a lot of hiking over at Hetch Hetchy, and once you get over on the other side, there's no rangers around, and the water's beautiful.
Oh,
it's really, really warm.
Oh, it is. That's interesting.
But the lower lakes and streams are extremely cold because they take the water from the lower part of the dam.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little, Buck. Where were you born?
I was born over in Oakland.
Oakland.
And went to school in Piedmont with Monty Upshaw. You remember Monty Upshaw?
Monty Upshaw.
He was, he's about your age, I think. He's 4 or 5 years younger.
He's a little older. I think he's about a year or two older than me.
And he was a big hero, when I was a kid.
Yes.
And so then I went to Davis for college, and then I came to law school in San Francisco in
UC
'66.
Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I came here in 1966 to go to law school.
So did you grow up in Oakland?
In Piedmont, yeah.
In Piedmont.
Piedmont is like the donut hole of Oakland. It's
Right.
a small city.
Very, very high.
Yeah.
Very rich society.
Well, when we moved to Piedmont in 1947, we bought this house because my father couldn't afford the houses that he wanted in Oakland, and we found this rundown house in the lower side of Piedmont near Oakland. And in those days, it was most of the people in the block I lived on were blue-collar workers. So it's changed a lot since then, but it was not ritzy. The street I lived on was not ritzy. It was a great neighborhood to grow up in.
And refresh my memory that at that famous ice cream store over there.
Fenton's.
Fenton's, yes.
Yes,
Oh,
on
wow.
Piedmont Avenue, about a 10-minute walk from my family home. My brother still lives in the house we moved into on July 1st, 1947.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And how old's your brother?
He's 12 years younger than I am, so I'm 75, he's 63.
Okay. Why don't you explain a little bit about why you love open water swimming?
Well, first of all, I tried periodically to swim in swimming pools, and I don't like going back and forth. I don't like the chlorine. Especially don't like indoor pools. And I like getting out here. I like seeing the conditions vary. Every day is different. The tides, the wind, the views. And the cooling off and warming up just makes me feel good all day. So that's probably a good reason for it.
I understand you're no stranger to hypothermia. Is that true?
Yeah, I almost died in 1989. And in those days, a bunch of us, and you were the leader of the group, Bob, called the Sunrisers. We'd get up early, we'd come down here, and we'd usually hit the water about 6:15, 6:30. And we would sort of calibrate our swims to the tide. So when it was a flood tide, we'd go west, either to Gas House Cove or to St. Francis Yacht Club. And when the tide was ebbing, we'd go east, Pier 39, Pier 7, Pier 33, depending where it was, and we'd jump and ride the tide back. So this was a December morning, probably around December 10th. And it was supposed to be a flooding tide, and we got down here, and as usual, we were haggling about where to go, and the time was ticking away, and we got into water later than we planned. So we were going to do a yacht harbor, but instead we went in and put in by the Marina Green. There's this little building down the Marina Green called the degaussing station. It's still there, and there's a little set of stairs that are kind of slick and full of seaweed, and you got it very slippery, so you have to sit down on your butt and slide down. We called it the Stairway to the Stars. So we put in there, to swim back. And in those days, I didn't use any flippers or anything, and I'm a very, very slow swimmer, and I was pretty lean then. And so we headed off to swim back to Aquatic Park, and we had set off somebody in a kayak to be our pilot. We were pretty lax about pilots. We didn't have power boats, but we had somebody in a kayak, and she headed out of Aquatic Park. And the night before it had been raining, it was rough, and she almost flipped over at the mouth of the cove, so she turned around and came back. So I get in the water and I start swimming, and we were late, so it was the end of the flood, and it had been raining the night before, and so there was a lot of runoff, freshets, and there was no flood tide. And so I got to by Gas House Cove, and I thought maybe I ought to just swim in here and walk back. But then I said, no, we got a pilot. I'll just meet up with the pilot and I'll be okay. Well, I got along the Muni Pier, and by that time the tide had changed. It was ebbing, and I just inched my way along Muni Pier, and I got into the mouth of the cove and swam to the buoy that's right at the mouth and grabbed onto that buoy, and I was just exhausted. I never felt that type of fatigue.
Exhausted or cold type of term?
Cold. I didn't remember feeling cold. I felt exhausted. And so I swam to another buoy and grabbed onto it and swam and that's the last I remember until I woke up in the hospital, and my boss, the city attorney, was there looking at me in the hospital, and the mayor was there, and the doctor told me that when they got me to the hospital, my heartbeat was about 15. My lungs were like 85 or 90% full of water, and my core temperature was about 85 degrees. And it just turned out this guy in the Dolphin Club, a guy named Bill Horgos, had been out swimming, and he had done a swim, and then he came back and he was going to head in, and some gal came out and said, why don't you do a swim with me? So he got back in the water, and he swam down towards the flag and found me down there and pulled me out. And that's the story.
Wasn't your time, Buck. You know why?
Why is that?
You still have a mission in life.
Okay. I'm still trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah, right. What do you think about when you're swimming out there, Buck?
Just how good it feels to be in the water, and sometimes if I've got some complex legal issue I'm trying to work out, I'll sort of work through in my mind. Sometimes I just enjoy feeling the water slide by.
And how long do you swim?
Oh, usually about half hour to 40 minutes. I'm not a great long distance swimmer.
And you're an early riser. What time do you usually get down here?
Well, I get up in the morning. Right now I've been getting up about 3:45, and I usually do some practice in languages that I've been studying. And then I leave my house on my bike about 10 to 5, and I get down.
So you bike down here?
Yeah, bike down. I get here at 5:20, 5:30, and then we get in the water about 6. Get out of the water at 6:30, 6:45. Take a shower. Get on my bike and go to work. I work in City Hall and park my bike in the basement of City Hall. In the evening, it takes me 17 minutes to get home. It's pretty.
Do they charge you for that?
No.
So, what language are you studying?
Well, right now I get up and I do 2 lessons of Portuguese, then 2 lessons of German, then 2 lessons of Russian. I'm just trying to keep up. I studied Russian and German in college, but that was back, the last semester I had was the semester Kennedy got assassinated, so I'm just trying to brush up on it.
So why are you studying that?
I don't know, I just like it, just try to keep my mind sharp.
Can you converse in it?
Yeah, oh yeah. I can converse very well in French, pretty well in Spanish, and I can get along in Portuguese, and German not so much. I only had 1 semester German. In Russian, I had 3 semesters, so.
I guess you can talk to Renee then, huh?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Do you have any fears when you're swimming out in the water, Buck, in the bay?
Not really. Once in a while, I might, especially in the winter, get out there and realize there's a very strong current, and I think, oh my God, am I going to make it? But I wear flippers now, so I don't really have any problems. No fears.
Getting back to that fateful day, how long do you think you were in the water?
Probably an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. It was real cold. It was probably 50 degrees.
Yeah, I remember we got up into the shower and everybody started showering, and then somebody said, well, where's Buck? And somebody said, well, I saw him by Gas House, and somebody said, oh, I saw him by the opening, and then we went running down, and then we couldn't find you, and then we were going to pull inflatable out, and then somebody said, oh, they got him over to the Dolphin Club. And it was really, really strange. You're over there and they had you on the floor and you were still semi-conscious and you were growling. It was unbelievable, like a bear.
Probably trying to breathe.
Yeah, right, yeah. But what a miracle. I remember I was working at the hospital at the time and I came down to see you when it was around 1:30 in the afternoon. I felt your leg and it was still cold.
The doctor told me that when they got me in the ambulance, got me to the hospital, they were trying to intubate me, get a tube down into my lungs. And I was so strong that they had to use this, some sort of drug to sort of temporarily paralyze me called curare, which is what they use in the Amazon with the darts to shoot birds and stuff. And that's how they relaxed me so they could intubate me.
Have you had any near-death experiences since that time?
No, that was it. One was enough.
What's changed in your life since you started swimming?
Well, I think I take much better care of myself. I feel better, feel happier. It was a major experience coming down here and joining the South End Rowing Club was great. Meeting a lot of people and it's sort of a unique institution here. So it's been it's
changed a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of people who weren't taking good care of themselves and they get down here.
Yeah. Did you ever get injured swimming in the water? Or?
No.
Did you ever see any finny creatures out there at all?
Pinnipeds?
Pinnipeds?
Yeah, I've had a couple of experiences in the winter when I was by myself and I get about to the farthest point over there on the Muni Pier from the beach, and all of a sudden I started feeling something. And at first I thought it was a plastic bag, and then I knew it wasn't a plastic bag, and it was a seal, and he was playing with me. And so my first reaction was to start swimming real hard, and then I realized this is ridiculous. You can swim circles around me. And he finally lost interest. So, but it was it made me feel a little bit weird, you know. What's he going to do? But he was just playing.
Plastic bags don't bite, though.
No.
You don't have to worry about plastic bags. But there's been several swimmers that have been bitten.
Yes, and it was probably by sea lions rather than seals. I know Tim Reed got hit by a sea lion. It was probably a sick sea lion because it had been hanging around here, and he said he felt like he had been hit by a freight train. The force of it hitting him.
Yeah.
So
Frank Gallagher, and there's been quite a few.
And he was never the same in terms of swimming out here. He was always nervous after that.
Frank?
No, Tim Reed.
Tim, yeah.
I don't even know if he swims down here anymore, does he?
I haven't seen Tim in, a long time. No. What are some of your favorite memories about swimming in the bay or open water swimming, Doc?
I think that doing the swim from the Bay Bridge to the club was a big thrill. And then one winter we did a swim, and you were there. We went out to Alcatraz. It was in January, and it was a huge ebb tide, and the water was rushing by Alcatraz like a river. And we jumped in there, and we went to the St. Francis Yacht Club. I thought that was one of the best swims I ever did.
I think they still do some of those swims.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like Stevie Ray Horowitz and Gary Emmett, they have each over 1,000 swims. I think Stevie has around 12 or 1,300.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. Imagine swimming Alcatraz 1,300
wow.
times.
A lot of time to do it.
Explain your least favorite part of swimming, open water swimming. Going into the water.
Yeah, I guess the first 2 or 3 minutes or first minute, you get in that water and it sort of shocks you, but you always swim out of it and get over it.
How do you go in the water? A lot of people have different ways.
I go in very fast.
Very fast.
I just get it over with. I can't dwindle and.
Right.
And I always want to be in the water ahead of everybody because I'm the slow swimmer. Another one of my favorite swims was always Coghlan Beach, because Coghlan sort of sticks out, and if there's a strong flood tide, it doesn't take much to get out into the current. And boy, what a great swim.
Fast swim.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite swim, Bob?
I think maybe it is, yeah.
How many times have you been out Alcatraz?
Oh, maybe 30 times. Not that many,
What
but
about the Golden Gate?
maybe 10.
Okay. Do you like swimming across the Golden Gate?
Yeah, it's okay. It's just, at this point, I've got other things going on in my life, and you have to sort of devote a day or a half a day to it. So, my wife and I spend a lot of time out in Bolinas, so,
Oh,
the weekends.
You still have a place in Bolinas?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What do you do after you get out of the water? Sprint into the shower and the sauna?
I go into the shower and then I get in the sauna a little while. Now that I'm riding my bike, I dress in the sauna and then I usually get out of there because going up the hill is going to warm me up on the bike. So that's one of the great things about the bike. So,
are you so cold when you get on the bike to go to work?
Sometimes, but by the time I get up the hill, I'm warmed up.
Have you ever been injured riding your bike?
No. Well, yeah, years ago, I was doing a ride. I did a ride, went out to the zoo and then the Cliff House and then around Land's End and came down here and I was coming out of the Presidio and the old Beltline Railroad tracks. They used to go right in front of the club and through the tunnel under Fort Mason and then along the marina and enter the Presidio down there just beyond Yacht Harbor. The tracks were there and my bike hit those tracks and it was wet and went sideways and I went down, twisted my knee.
A lot of people have been injured on those tracks, and in fact, right now they're in the process of removing all those tracks.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that for about 3 or 4 months now.
Yeah. Maybe someday they'll put them back in because, if you want to reduce traffic, we could have these old streetcars run past here through Fort Mason down to the marina. And
well, there's talk about doing that. Yes.
I think they might do that someday.
Yeah. Right. Do you have any swimming mentors that have inspired you over the years?
Well, you're one of them. I'd say you're the main one. I mean, you got us going with the Sunrisers. It was a great era.
Tell us a little about the Sunrisers.
Well, it's just a group of people that would get down here early in the morning and we'd socialize and then we'd go swim. And, always look forward to it every day. And there'd be a period of ebb tides and we'd go down to Pier 7 and jump in there and the summer and the sunlight. And it was great. I think that's the thing I like the most.
I understand they were kind of a loose group of swimmers. Is that true? Didn't have any rules.
Yes, so that's right. We talk about the Dolphin Club as being the Apollonians and the South Enders as the Dionysians. Dolphin Club has all kinds of rules and they kick people out of the club if they disobey rules, like swimming out of the cove. And I can remember the first time I ever swam from Pier 39, we all just went down there and jumped in and swam back, no pilot or anything. All kinds of boats going by. It was pretty crazy. And then there was one time we swam out of Pier 33 and one of these big, huge cruise boats was docking and a couple of swimmers went right up next to the boat and the captain came down here and was just furious because they have these things that suck water in and out of the bow to help steer the boat. Thrusters, and he said that somebody could have been sucked into that. So after my near drowning incident, I think we changed the rules quite a bit and tightened things up a little bit.
So do you swim outside the cove now, Buck?
Well, I'll swim over to Fort Mason and then swim back or do an inside-outside. But
do you by yourself?
No. We go with a group usually. Yeah. And one of my favorite swims now is on a very high tide and strong flood. Go through under Farnsworth Gap and over to Fort Mason and then swim back on the tide.
Now, what is the Farnsworth Gap?
Where the Muni Pier joins the land, there's a little place at a high tide you can get through out of Aquatic Park and get over to Fort Mason. And it's called the Farnsworth Gap because on one of these crazy New Year's swims when the tides just went wild and they came close to losing some people, George Farnsworth, he didn't make it to the cove because the ebb tide was so strong, and he swam around along the Muni Pier and came in under the Muni Pier, and that's how it got the name Farnsworth Gap.
What does the South End Rowing Club mean to you, Burk?
Well, great group of people, a long-time San Francisco institution, and a place where I sort of, I think, found myself in a lot of ways. Started taking better care of myself and enjoying physical activity and associating with people with similar inclinations.
You always had a kind of a moderate lifestyle, haven't you, Buck?
Yeah, pretty moderate.
Never a drinker. Do you ever smoke?
No.
Yeah.
But I didn't exercise as regularly as I did after I joined the club.